Okay, hopefully, can both of you guys hear me just fine?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, excellent, great. Well, we are, um, I've kind of moved around the schedule a little bit, and I wanted to go over the structure. Well, we talked about structure and skin quiz, and I want to look at this. These are supposed to be due on Sunday. I only 3 have come in so far, but I want to look at them and talk about them because I don't think I've been the people that have turned them in. I don't know if they've come to our discussions or what, because it seems like people are getting a good start, but are missing some of the relevant points of the assignment. And I wanted to talk about that. And I'm not doing this to get, so that anybody feels bad about what they've done or anything. I think it's just um, perhaps not the best communication. And I'm going to get to the assignment. So we look at that. I want to talk about these things again because the people that have reached out to me and talked to me seem they're still working on their assignments, but it seems like they have a pretty good understanding. And a couple people have turned in things that I don't know. It just I want to talk about it with you guys. But this is the first semester. I've been teaching at UVU for 5 years, and this is the first semester that this has happened, um, where people just aren't understanding. And I wonder if it's because they haven't seen the discussion where we talk about it or what. But anyway, before we get into that, how are you guys doing with production of your assignments and everything like that and stress levels of the class?
Started yet. I
What's
just
that?
have, I haven't started yet. I just have like so much going on in all of my classes. But I don't feel like this class is too much, like I don't feel like you're putting too much on us. I have other classes that are putting too much on me, and that's the problem.
Well, I wonder because we have like 3/4 of the class have not turned anything in yet. And like I said, it's not due until Sunday. But I'm wondering, let's get everything turned in and I'll do grades and stuff like that. But like everything, you guys can resubmit, and the grades will go up when you resubmit and all that kind of stuff. But I think that on Wednesday we'll meet, and that's when we'll go over more stuff, and and see, and we'll talk about each of the things. Did it help to go over and talk about the wire stuff? Did everybody get a pretty good idea of what was going on with the wire?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did.
Okay, so that did help. All right. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these things, and I want to reiterate a couple things that are really, really important. First is we're meeting online. We're not meeting in person. That means if we're meeting in person, I can, huff and puff over your shoulder and tell you, oh, this is wrong, that's right, do more of this kind of thing. But if we're not meeting in person, I can't do that. So the only venue I have is the assignments, which means that you guys basically have unlimited revisions. You guys can go, redo stuff as many times as you need to get to that perfect score. Um, just as long as you take advantage of it. What I find disappointing is that with that policy in place, I have had students that turn something in, get upset when they don't get the grade they want, and just leave it and walk away. And that's the class is intended for everybody to learn something, not for me to um, flex my grading muscles. That is not the point. And I think I shared with you guys a story about in one of my art history classes, I require people to do projects instead of quizzes and midterms. And where for the projects, this one person turned in a picture of a sandwich. And my first reaction was, what in the heck? I used a different word, but you get the idea. And so I wrote back and I said, okay, this is a big fat zero, but tell me what you're trying to accomplish. Because I think we have a way, I can BS around anything, and I bet we can find a way to tie this into the class. And it was art history from prehistory times to the beginning of the Renaissance. So this person came back and said, well, I made a sandwich with olive oil because I found out that a lot of the Greek jars we looked at held olive oil in them. And I said, well, why didn't you put that in the project? And I said, this is an art history class. What we've got to do is connect what you've done solidly to the art history that we've looked at in the class. And we went back and forth. Every time we went back and forth, his grade improved until he got to the end. His final project, he showed several examples of uh, like old paintings that showed Greek jars that were olive oil, that were filled with olive oil. He showed images of jars in museums that held olive oil as well as in shipwrecks. And he explained, this was an incredibly common jar because that's how they shipped olive oil. And they used it for everything. And he talked about how they use it. He said, so I thought I would use it today because we still use it today in sandwiches. And so his project was he showed all the photos that he took while he was making the sandwich with the olive oil, and he was able to tie it directly into the class. Using art history, he had citations, talking about what they used the jars for and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up being a really good project, but it started off as an unadorned image of an olive, of a sandwich with no message or anything. So we can get most stuff to work. And if you're getting out of 25 points, if you get 5 to start with, don't take that sitting down. And I've also people have gotten irritated because they did all the assignments and I didn't grade them very well because they sent in a lousy picture. So they turned around, took some pictures, better views, so I could actually see what they were doing, and their grade shot right up. So the grade is not the final thing. I want everybody to be very aware that it is perfectly acceptable to make adjustments and resubmit. Now, I know that both of you guys are doing the research option. Have either of you had to resubmit research material?
Yeah, I think I have to resubmit it because I didn't do the bibliography right.
Okay.
I just have to do it in alphabetical order. Um,
Okay.
but yeah,
And when you resubmitted, did your grade go up?
I haven't resubmitted it yet, but
Okay.
I'm sure it will.
Okay, because when I tell people to do it in alphabetical order and stuff like that, it's usually only a couple points, but that is usually enough to get it from an A minus to an A. And as soon as I see those resubmissions, that's the priority. I go back and I revisit that. And sometimes there have been people that thought that they send in the revised assignment, and actually they resent the original, so the points didn't change at all. But if you guys don't erase, please, when you do resubmit, don't erase. My watch is talking to me. If you do resubmit, please do not erase the comment chain for that assignment. And when you resubmit, usually I will get that notice automatically, but it doesn't hurt to email me right away too, because I want to make sure you guys get as many points as possible. I would love it if everybody walked away from this class with A's and A minuses. That'd be truly awesome, because that would mean that you guys are really working at it and really trying hard. Now, that also doesn't mean you have to get a perfect score on every assignment. I've had people get A's in this class where they aced the writing and didn't quite do as good as they wanted on some of the projects, but they were still able to get an A or an A minus. So it's so much better to try and resubmit than it is to half-heartedly try and then just resign yourself. So please make sure that you resubmit. So I'm going to share my screen here. Do you guys have any questions about all that stuff that I just said?
No,
No.
I think I understood everything. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, now I don't understand what these red triangles are. Well, I do understand what they mean. They mean that I have to go back over and make sure that the images and stuff are more accessible. But when I see one of those red triangles and I go to the assignment, I don't see where it's marked. So, if you guys, one thing that I really like about this class is if anybody does find um, links that aren't working, you guys have been really good about letting me know so I can go back and fix them. So if there's any issues with any of those, let me know. Let's see, but we're going to go down to structure with the skin. And we're going to look at that. Okay, so this project, some of the things for this project that are really important is we're making 5 to 8 modules that are either identical or obviously associated with each other. It's obvious that they're related. Like this one on the left, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 modules, and they're all based on this kind of miniature orange crate idea. But you can see that about half of them have triangles cut out of one side. So they're still based on that idea, but they change a little bit. And to scale, each of these are about, I want to say about 3 inches across. So they're each about, they could fit with inside of a baseball about, and that's the size that we're looking for. We don't want to do much smaller than that because it's going to be really difficult. And I mentioned that I really like these two, the center image. Can you guys see this, what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Okay. The center image I really like too, because you guys can, I hope you can easily see what the module is. We have a triangle shape here. And then the module is kind of this odd truncated triangle thing, but we can see 4 going up this way and 4 going up this way. And here, this one, I think it still deals with it, but the module is a lot harder to see because they really didn't pay attention to that part of the requirement as thoroughly. And the module seems to be like 2 trapezoid things joined at the narrow end, and then they kind of snake it around. So I think that the center one and the one on the left are a lot more successful when it deals with the module. One of the other things we talked about is there needs to be both structure and skin, and they need to be showing as equally important. So that means we don't have skin covering the whole thing, and we don't have only the structure. We have a balance of both. The middle one, I think, is probably the most successful in this because we see that each module has the skin in the exact same place, but the way that they put this together, some of the paper or the skin is in between you and everything else, and some of it is behind everything else. So it kind of frames it like this is behind, this is behind. And I like that because you can see the structure in between, and you can also see that the paper is very important as well. Then the third thing that is really, really important is to make sure that these reach into space and activate the volume of space around it. Notice that none of these are vertical towers and none of these are horizontal lines. They're winding, they're wiggling, they're moving around. They're stable, they sit on their own power. When they're photographed, they're not leaning against anything. And we're making sculpture. We're not making stuff to be leaned against a wall. And that's something that I hope everybody gets, that it does need to stand by itself. That's that's what sculpture is. But I want those three things to be really forefront of people's minds. Repeated modules, and you can twist them a little. You can fiddle with each one a little bit. This one I like for that because all 8 of them are identical. That's the first one. The second one is that you have skin in some areas and it's off in others. So the whole thing is not covered in skin and the whole thing is not devoid of skin. But you have paper being used as something that's makes it interesting for the viewer. And again, I think the middle one is the most successful at that. And I think the one on the right is really successful. This one kind of bothers me a bit in that aspect because for the most part, most of the skin is in between you and the structure. The reason I like this again is because you can see the structure. It frames it the skin frames it in some places and supports it, and other places it hides it, like right through here. And in this one, I think they do a really good job making it very interesting for the viewer. And then the third big thing is that we don't have a vertical tower. We don't have a horizontal line. We have something that moves around, activates this volume of space around it. Does that make sense to everybody? You remember our discussion from last week when we were talking about this? I'm sorry, Kim?
Oh, I said, yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. All right, good. So I want to look at a couple of the ones that have been submitted. 3 have been submitted so far. And I just want to look at them. And we're going to look at them and then talk about each one a little bit. And I am considering this the first iteration of whatever these are. All right. So this is the first one. And right off the bat, one thing I really like about this is that straws are being used and they're very colorful. And that seems to be a lot of fun. A couple of things that concern me is that there isn't a module. These are triangles that are look like an unfolded rope that are triangles. And it's interesting, but it doesn't fill that part of the assignment where they need to be modules. And we talked about specifically the module size being about the size of a baseball. With the scale of these straw pieces, this is really, really small. Now, I think if you want to go with a smaller scale of a module, then do more of them. If 5 to 8 is what we need for baseball size and you're going to go half that, then do 10 to 16. But this person could make modules as tetrahedrons or 4-sided pyramids, and that could kind of work. The other thing that kind of concerns me about that is you looked right through here, and this idea of the triangles kind of disappears because of the straws going in here. This doesn't make an awful lot of sense. Like I said, I love the color of the straws, and I also like the fact that there's some like plastic wrap used as some of the skin. Now, because the skin is supposed to kind of occlude things, last week I talked about if you're going to use saran wrap, you paint it or you do something to it to apply some texture or something, or you can use several layers, and then that makes it kind of translucent. So, one thing I also like about this is that it does move through space. It is not a vertical line, it's not a vertical tower, and it's not a horizontal line, but it kind of wiggles around. So I think that has something going for it. What I would like to see that would help this to improve would be for the artist to decide on a module. And these triangles are all really small, but maybe they could make 10 triangles or 10 tetrahedron pyramids, and that's a 4-sided pyramid. So they could use these materials. Don't throw this away, but use these materials to build something new. And I would build it out of straws. I think that's a really fun idea. And for that skin with the saran wrap, it might be interesting to maybe use some marker and color a layer of saran wrap and then put another layer of saran wrap over the marker and see what that does. That could be really interesting. And then putting those tetrahedral pyramids together in a similar fashion so it looks like it activates space. And this looks like it is leaning against the back, and this doesn't need to do that. I think this could probably rotate forward with this corner, that corner, and that corner supporting it, probably stand up by itself. But that's what I would like to see for this. And that would, I think, bring it in a lot closer to what this module is about, but we discussed and what the parameters of the assignment are. Does that make sense? I mean, do you guys understand what I'm talking about? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions about this one?
No.
Okay. So I love the fact that they use straws. I love the fact that it winds around, because that winding makes it so much more interesting than if it was just in a line on the floor, or a stacked tower. So I think those two things are really cool. I love the fact that they use color straws. That is just a fun thing to do. So the person who made this, I want to reiterate, I'm looking at this and I'm just talking about it as it relates to the assignment, not anything else. So, we're not picking on anybody or anything like that. So please don't feel picked on. I am really looking forward to what this person does with that input, and I want to see what they come up with next. So I'm going to find the next one that was turned in. All right, so we're looking at this structure. This is a really interesting object. It is a fun object. It reminds me, there's a Danish sculptor who makes, he's an engineer, and he makes these big walking things out of light wood and paper, and the wind hits them and makes them walk across the beach. And it looks really incredible. And that's what I'm thinking of when I see this. And I like how they use paper here and there, and bits of popsicle sticks and stuff like that to make the triangles. But there's a couple. So I love the fact that they used the paper and the sticks the way that they did. Now there's a couple things that I think would really elevate this and bring it more in line with the parameters of the assignment. And one is deciding on a module and creating the module. That's one of the principal linchpins of the assignment. And looking at this, we have a module here that is based on rectangles, module here that's based on triangles, and maybe the module that they could go for would be more based on triangles. And so that's one thing. And then the other is that with these triangle shapes, it would be so much fun, like how this pokes out here, pokes out here, pokes out here, to activate space around it. This should, I think, I would photograph this with its resting on its edge, but I would use those triangles to poke out in multiple directions instead of just one side or the other. So I think those two things are really important, that this person needs to develop a module. And it doesn't have to be a tetrahedron. It would be easy to make these into an octahedron, or even something like, what if you made a tetrahedron where each of the faces looked like this with these three triangles attached? That could be something that would be really interesting. Or using these to make prism shapes. But as it is, this is really interesting, but it doesn't fit those two parts of the three-pronged parameters of the assignment. I think it really works with the idea of structure and skin balance. I like how the index cards, it's just plain right here, and then you see through the other side, you see the lines right there, and that becomes a really interesting feature of it. I love how the paper is here and there, it's not everywhere. And in some areas it's more dense, and in others it's more open. So that part I think is really good. but the other two is, the modules and then activating the volume of space around it. Those two things, I think, need to be addressed a little bit better. So the person should work on deciding what kind of module to make. And I think for these kinds of shapes, like a triangular prism would be really interesting. I think that would look fantastic. And then use those triangle shapes to not make a vertical tower or a horizontal line, but to point in all directions so you get an activation of the volume of space around it. What I say about this, does that make sense? So this is a good balance of structure and skin. It just needs to address the module idea, and it needs to activate the volume of space around it. So does that make sense for both you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, and these first three people too who have done this are very brave doing this, and so they will get gold stars stapled to the fronts of their foreheads. Okay, now this one, okay, I'm gonna move this a little bit because there's two photos, and I want to show both the photos to you. And you're not seeing it yet because I haven't shared the screen yet, but I want to get both photos in place so you can see them. And Jassiel, it's going to be yours. Would you mind if, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and if you could talk about what you were thinking when you did this, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead and talk about it. I really appreciate it. But yeah, when you put it up, I'll talk about it.
Okay, well let me talk about it first and explain what I find successful about it, and then you can, I'll invite you to talk about it too. Okay, so this is one shot of it, and this is another shot of it. And okay, so we have those three prongs. The first is module. What's the module? Well, the module is very clearly a tetrahedron. So we have this orange triangle. We have the triangle here. We have a triangle here. You see that crossbar right there? It's two other triangles. It's a tetrahedron. We see here's another one. Here's another one back here, one right here, and one right here. And then you see part of another one. So Jassiel has done several modules, and I think that one she's addressing that part, or they're addressing that part of the assignment. So the second is balance of structure and skin, and I think that this is starting to get there. It's difficult to find what that balance is, but I think that this is a really good start. And and I'll show you the other image too. Each of the tetrahedra have one face with colored paper on it. And I would like to see, and I think there's just a little bit, I think it might benefit from having a little bit more colored paper. So like if every other module had two pieces of paper on it, that might do it. But I like this because some of the papers in front, in between you and the rest of the structure, and the green and the yellow are behind the structure. So I think that is working pretty well. And then the third is, does it reach into and activate space? Well, it's not a straight vertical tower. It's not a horizontal line. It kind of twists and rises around. So I think it is starting to do that really well too. And I'm going to get to the second image. And you can see how this kind of coils around a bit. And what I would like to see is another tetrahedron, like right in front, right, connecting this one with the blue and this one with the yellow and pointing in a different direction than that one. I think that would help to activate space somehow. And I think that adding a little bit more paper would make this really um, nail that as well. But those are my thoughts. Okay, Jassiel, if you're up to it, would you mind talking about it a little?
Yeah, of course. So uh what I wanted to do was kind of make like a twisting tower almost with um the tetrahedrons. And so I started connecting it together by its sides and then placing placing it in the middle of each kind of, I don't know. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Sorry.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
Well, it looks
yeah,
like when
and
you
but I
connected them, I'm sorry.
yeah. Oh no, but I
It,
do agree that I needed to add more um of the colored paper. I was using the paint chips at my job.
oh yeah, okay.
Um so I grabbed some paint chips and I didn't grab enough. So I I just kind of added what I had at the time, but
Okay.
I'll go back and do that. Um and yeah, and I also agree that I needed to add like a little bit more to add more to the space there. But yeah.
Well, and I see that there. It looks to me like there's 6 tetrahedra, and it looks like each of them are in a pair where they're kind of attached on one of their edges.
Yeah.
Then you, after you got 3 pairs like that, you kind of stuck them together, going at different angles, and I think that that's really fun. I think it'd be cool if you made 2 more modules like this in the
Mhm.
same kind of way, and then stuck that new double pyramid like right in front, right here.
Yeah.
I think that could do, or when this with this other photo, um, attaching it like right in this area, right here, to kind of balance the one with the red. I think that would be
Okay.
really. Is that kind of jiving with what you were thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, I could see what you're saying. Yeah.
Another
That
thing
would
that
be
I
really
really like,
interesting.
is that the paper is not always on the same plane. Like, here it's on one plane, here it's on another plane, here it's at right angles to those, and here it's at right angles to those, so it's almost again on the same. And that's always kind of fun. If we go back to the first example for the class, that's one thing I have an issue with on this one on the left hand side. It seems like all the cardboard skin is almost on the same plane. And Jassiel, you didn't do that. So I think that is another aspect of this one that's successful. So yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
thank you
that
so
this
much.
this is coming along really, really well. And so,
Thank you.
and it might be nice too if you guys. It's always a good. I'm not going to say it might be nice. I think it's a really good idea to document all the stages of the work that you do. So if you do something, you think it's done, you come back a couple hours later and you realize, oh, I could do this to improve it. Document the first one when you thought it was done, and take a photo of it when you come back to it as well. And you're not going to turn all those into me. You're only going to turn in the last one. But that's really important. And I want to tell this to you guys because it seems like every year, so it's not every semester, but every year, there is at least one well meaning family member or roommate that looks at your work surface, your work area, and thinks, oh, that's garbage. I'll help by cleaning up. Kim and Jassiel, have you ever had that happen to you?
Not for me, just because I keep everything in my room, and I'm very particular about people coming into my room because of that reason.
Okay, that's really good because the most distressing one is spring semester this year. Somebody was coming, they did a study abroad and they were taking this class while they were doing study abroad. And they came home and the airline destroyed all the stuff that they had tried to pack to bring home, which they should have just taken photos of it. And the stuff they did take photos of, they thought it was okay, but they lost some of them. And what it boiled down to is that they had done all this work and lost it all. And then the semester before that, somebody's parents were visiting, and so this is October of last year, and they saw, oh, we're going to do the dishes, we're going to put stuff away, we're going to do all this, and they saw a pile of garbage on what they thought was garbage on a living room table at this student's apartment, and her mom threw everything away. So I mean, she was able to find some of it out of the dark trash and stuff like that, but it was a bad situation. So just as a cautionary tale, do your best to document as much as possible, because we don't want you to lose your work. So, do you guys have any questions about the kind of stuff that we're looking at, the kind of stuff that we're talking about for this particular project?
No, I don't think so.
I don't
Okay.
think
All right, Jess.
so.
I'm sorry, Kim, what was that?
Oh, I just said I don't think so.
Okay. By talking about it, did it help you, Kim, with what you are working on yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think
Okay.
I guess you had said however many modules there could be, but we could do more if we wanted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm thinking 5 to 8 that would fit into like a 3-inch sphere. So, something 5 to 8 about that size. If it's smaller, then more. And if you want to make more, that's fine. I think one of the I don't know, it was not successful and the person did not get a very good grade. But the modules they made out of Legos, and they did it towards the end of the semester in hopes that they get some points. And it was really a sad effort. So please do not use Legos. That's only happened in my class. I've been teaching since 2003, and that's only happened in my classes maybe 4 times over the years. And sadly, people never got a good grade when they tried to do this with Legos. So I'm sorry. So hopefully that didn't dash anybody's hopes. Okay, so that was the big thing that I wanted to talk about. And the other thing that I want to talk about is the next research thing, and this is going to not, and I want to talk about the applying the tools of artistic critique, those two things. And please feel free to ask questions as we're doing this. Neither of these are going to be due for a while. Next week, we're going to look over everybody's structure and skin submission. And I'm going to talk about the next project, the purple foam block or the blue foam, whichever. Is it purple or blue this year? The foam block that you guys got in your kits.
It's purple.
Okay. We're going to talk about that next week because that's going to be the next significant project that we work on. Okay, so as we do this, I want to talk about this 7C first. Notice it's not due for a couple weeks. And I also want to talk about applying the tools of artistic critique. And notice these aren't due until November. Okay, but I do want to talk about them. And I don't know if the link that I provided works anymore. So I would appreciate it if you guys can go to this module, open up this and see if any of the links work. And if they do, let me know. If they don't, let me know, and I'll put in some more samples. So I want to talk about both of these things. It used to be in the ancient of days, we would do a research thing where everybody would pick an artist and you were required to put together an annotated bibliography, a PowerPoint, and a video of your own thing, and an essay, and do it all in one package deal. And it was a huge project. And so that's why we separated out. And it was also overwhelming for the people that were doing service learning. It was way too much because you had to report on a project that you were supposed to have designed all semester long. And that's why I divided these things up into 4 sections, because by the end of the term, you're going to have a significant body of work for this research project or your service learning project that you will be able to show off to people, and they will be amazed at how much you got done in a semester. And it's because we do it in chunks to make it, make it more palatable. The artist research PowerPoint, what you are going to be doing is referencing your annotated bibliography that you wrote if you did research, and you're going to be creating 7 to 10 slides and then recording yourself talking about each of the slides, or you can write out the narration and have an AI voice record it for you, or have a roommate read it. That's whatever. That doesn't matter. But it must be turned in a video format, because that way I can share it with the rest of the class. We'll put it on our class YouTube channel. And there's a couple ways to do that we can talk about. One is, the easiest way is to set up a Teams meeting that you record. And when you, before you turn on the recording, you do a screen share where you're sharing the PowerPoint, and then you just turn on record and record yourself talking about each of the PowerPoint slides. Now, this should not be difficult for anybody. I am in my 6th decade of life. I am able to do this. I was able to put together a 25 slide PowerPoint presentation on Sasquatch in 2 hours, because I found out that all the work that I had done was saved incorrectly, my fault, and disappeared. So I know if I can do something like this, I know you guys can do it. All right. This cannot be over 8 minutes in length. 5 to 8 minutes is the time frame. I have to put that in because I have had one of these go 14 minutes, and I had the worst one. Actually, it was actually a good one, but it lasted 32 minutes. 5 to 8 minutes is the max. It needs to be presented in a WAV, MOV, or MP4 format. So, like I said, so I can upload it to YouTube. And then I can share the link with everybody. Now, one of the issues that keeps coming up is, just like with the HEIC file, everybody should know by now that the HEIC files are not opened through Canvas. I don't know if I don't know why Canvas doesn't accept it. I don't know if it's just my interface with Canvas or what, but HEIC files won't work. And other video formats aren't going to work. PowerPoint, if you have the PowerPoint program that you get free access to as a student at UVU, there is a feature where you can record as a video, as I believe it records it as an MP4 on your so that you can present and record yourself presenting the PowerPoint. If you need help doing that, we can talk about it in the next week or two. But the best help you're going to find is going to be finding a YouTube video that walks you through making a video with PowerPoint. And so the first one is make the PowerPoint, 7 to 10 slides, present it and record yourself presenting it in WAV, MOV, or MP4 format. And then you're going to make a work log and submit it in the work log area for this module. And this module is 7.C. So this is a YouTube tutorial on making a PowerPoint with narration. And here are 2 examples that previous classes have done of this exact type of thing. Now, before anybody screams and throws up their hands in revulsion, how many annotated citations did you do for your annotated bibliography? What's that?
I'd have to look, I'd have to pull mine up again because I don't remember.
Well, for this class, I think I only required 5. So everybody did 5 citations. And the annotations for each of those gives you the information that kind of guides how you would narrate this. You just draw from those annotations. So if you make one slide that has an image of your artist with their name, and then you make one slide for each of the 5 references that you used, and then your last slide, it just shows on the screen the same 5 citations for your references in alphabetical order, correctly done, with the accessed on dates at the end, all that kind of stuff. That gives you your 7 slides. So first, introductory slide, one slide for each of the 5 sources you looked at, and then the last slide is going to show those 5 sources. And when you make these slides, definitely look at what these look like, because they're basically going to be simple slide in PowerPoint with maybe a couple words and then an image or two of the artist's work. And you can draw those images from each of those references that you cited. So I think the record for making this, as the shortest one that I've seen record-wise, was like under an hour. So you can do this pretty quickly. Actually making it. Putting your research together, practicing your narration may take a little bit longer, but it is also kind of fun when somebody uses an AI voice to do the narration. We've had people do like James Earl Jones type voices, as well as cartoon character voices. So that's fine.
Question.
What's that?
I have a question. So in our bibliography and all that, if we happen to find something that we want to use more than what we put in the artist bibliography, can we replace something out of there, or do we have to stick to all of the information that we put in there?
You do not have to stick to all that information. You
Okay,
you
thank you.
can use only that information if you want to, but if you want to do additional stuff, that's fine. If you do additional stuff, make sure you add that onto the citation slide, your last slide that shows you all the sources. And on that last slide, it is only going to be the sources. So let's okay, neither of these show that, but I'm going to open this up. I'm going to turn off the sound, and I want to show this to you. But Kim, that's a great question. This is a person's research that they did on James Turrell. And this is what their slides look like. Notice that in here, this is not what she wrote in her annotations. It's a little bit different. And you don't even have to do nearly this much. All you really need to do, if you want to, is have an image where you just have a couple words, and then you have a couple and a few images. Like on this one, they could have made a slide where it was just these 3 images and the caption light and space, and then just said this in the narration. And but I want to show you all this. What this person did was quite extensive. You don't have to have all this writing on there. They did a really good job on this. Notice the time, they did 5 minutes. And then when we get to the end here, this is what I'm talking about. Everybody has to have a last slide. Okay, we're going to go right here. Notice this last slide has those 5 citations that they used in their annotated bibliography. But if you want to have more, if you have 7 sources, add those in. But the important thing to see here is that they're alphabetically arranged, and each of them have the accessed on date at the end. Well, this one's missing it. But the others all have it. And everything is done in correct MLA format. Now, for this person, I did dock them points because the last slide did not, I mean, this did not have an accessed on phrase at the end here, but they got those points back because they put this information in a new document. And in that document, they corrected and, edited also, it was correct. And then they resubmitted their video file plus a separate, an additional file that had this in a document. Does that make sense? So Kim, if you want to do 2 more sources or whatever, that's fine. You just have to include them in your sources slide at the very end. And this, I think that this is a good example of 2 slides where it's just this person did a lot of narration for this, where they described what these objects were. And for this one, it didn't need as much narration because it had all the information there. But these are good examples of 2 slides. All right. Does this help you guys?
Yes, it helps a lot. Thanks.
Okay. So again, MOV, MP4, or WAV file. One thing I want to remind everybody about, if you do the, if you try to submit this from your phone, it will automatically lock it so I can't get access to it. And I have to ask permission and stuff like that. And if I can't access it, or I have to go to something else to do it, it makes it very difficult to grade. And that's another reason why I ask people to submit the file itself. And there's already been a couple people where the files have been way bigger than what Canvas can handle. And I just say, hey, Canvas can't download this. Can you just compress it? And they're able to feed it. You can feed it through a program where instead of making it a one of those lock compressed file folders, it will actually just run a process where it makes it so that it uses up less memory. And and there are several free programs that will do that. So if you have like 14 gigabytes in your video when you're all done, I don't understand why anybody would have a video file that big. Process it through that. Try to keep it down to the mid megabyte range, something small enough that Canvas can actually open it. So if you turned in your thing, you did everything right, and you get a 0, look at the comment, because the comment may say, hey, there's a wall that I can't get by that won't allow me to access this, or it's in the wrong file type. Please convert it to make sure that it's the right file type, or it's using way more memory than Canvas can handle. Please compress it. And and so that hopefully is not that big of a fix. But as soon as you get it fixed, resubmit it. Let me know. So that was another thing I wanted to talk about. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is applying the tools of artistic critique. Okay, and that's what this looks like. Remember the tools of artistic critique. There's 4 tools that we use in this class. Do you remember what those 4 tools are? Do either of you remember what the first tool is?
Was it description?
Yes, exactly right. First tool is description. You describe height, width, apparent visual materials, design, those kinds of things. What is the second tool? And I will give you a hint. It starts with an A. I'm sorry, Kim?
Analyze?
Yes,
Trying to
exactly
remember.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. It's analyze, and that's where you talk about your extrapolation on how potentially it was made. And do you guys remember what the third tool is? And this starts with an I.
Interpret.
Yes, exactly right. And if in analyze, you talk about how they potentially made it, and interpret, maybe you address why they made it. What could it possibly mean? If there are symbols used, what do those symbols mean? If it looks like it's made in a particular way on purpose, maybe why could it be that way? And you inject or imagine more meaning into it. And then Jaciel, do you remember what the fourth tool is? And this one starts with an E.
Evaluate.
Yes, exactly right. Is it successful? How is it successful? Did you respond to it? Those are the four things that are really important to remember. And if we go to this Tools of Artistic Critique page, under each of those headings, there's questions to consider. And I don't want anybody to actually write those questions or ask those questions out loud. You ask them inside your head and then give the answer out loud. And when you do that, you sound really brilliant because you can address those questions directly as you're looking at the artwork. Now, for this right here, the critiques from class, this is supposed to be a list of videos that a playlist. If this link does not work and doesn't get you to that, please let me know as soon as you can, and I'll do something else. I'll try to find a better way of sharing those critiques so you know what's going on. But with the artistic critique, you're going to be doing two of them. One is on your own work, and one is on somebody else's work in this class. And it's absolutely vital that it has to be work done for this class this year, this semester, basically. And I have to point that out. It does seem kind of obvious for most of us, but I have had students before who, when they do their own work, they really like something that they did last year for a totally different class, and they use that. Or one person went to Europe over fall break, and when they came back, they tried to turn their artistic critique in on some of the artwork that they saw in European museums. That's not going to work. It has to be for somebody's work in this class this semester. And this video, I hope you guys remember this video. I'm going to share this tab describing what you see. This is that Henry Moore reclining figure one. Do you guys remember this? We watched this video?
Yeah.
This is where we can hear two art historians using those four tools of artistic critique to talk about a Henry Moore sculpture. And this is the kind of thing you're going to be doing. And you don't have to, they talked back and forth for a while. They're comfortable doing this. It was really smooth. You don't have to be really smooth in order to get a good grade on this. You can just be yourself. And if it happens that you're being yourself is really smooth, that's great. But what you need to do is, these are going to be 3 to 5 minutes long. If you go through each of these steps and answer each of those questions, you read them silently and then answer them out loud, you're going to fill up the 5 minutes, the 3 to 5 minutes really quickly. And how this will look is, you're going to record yourself, and you can do it with a phone, or you can do it with a Teams call to yourself, where you're doing a screen share showing only the artwork that you're evaluating, or that you're critiquing. So the screen is only going to show the artwork that you're critiquing, and you don't have to move around it. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to show more than one shot, just one photo of it. And then you're going to record yourself as you describe it, analyze it, interpret it, and evaluate it, asking yourself the questions that are found in the Tools of Artistic Critique page. If you want to do this, if it makes you uncomfortable recording your voice, don't have to record your voice. you can write this out and then feed it to an AI voice generator. Or you can give the script to a friend or a family member and have them read it.
Obama.
Oh, Jassiel, your mic is on, so I heard whoever you were talking to.
Sorry.
No problem. At least it wasn't a surprise with a bunch of swear words. All right, so does that make sense? And when you submit it, you're going to submit it with the title of the work and the name of the creator. And so when this is done really well, the video will open with a photo of the artwork that's being critiqued, either yours or somebody else's. And you're going to start with, hi, I am doing this work. This is my own work. It's called such and such, or if it doesn't have a title, it's untitled. Or if it's somebody else's work, you're going to say, I saw this on the discussion board for the biomorphic carving, and I really liked it, so I wanted to do my critique on somebody else's work on this sculpture. You know, it turned out really good. It's made by so-and-so in the class. And then you just launch in and you describe it, you analyze it, you interpret it, and the interpretation is not going to be right or wrong. It is going to be something that you have validated by your own observations. You're going to use the $3 words that are listed in the Tools of Artistic Critique page, and I'll show you where those are, or as much of them as seem plausible. Like right at the bottom here, elements of art, principles of design. You're going to use those words so it sounds like you have been educated correctly in the university system. And then when you're all done, you stop recording. You're going to turn it in as an MOV, MP4, or WAV file. I think we want primarily the video file because what I have found is more often than not, the links to YouTube or Vimeo are really restrictive in our ability to share them with other people in the class. So I may change that where you submit with those 3 file types we talked about. Actually, let me change that right now. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to write that. All right. And I have to say that because sometimes it's just simply not going to work, but this is much, much, much preferred, doing the separate the file. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then this is the assignment for my own work. This works when you're doing your own work. This works really well if you pretend with all your heart that this is the first time you've ever seen it. So don't, as you do the critique, do not constantly interject or try to keep yourself from constantly interjecting. This is what I was trying to do. This is what I did here. This is how I did that. And just pretend it's the very first time you've ever seen it. And I guarantee that that will come off sounding so much better. And then the next one is doing the exact same thing with somebody else's work. It's going to be somebody else's work that you've seen in one of the discussions for this class. And you do the exact same thing. So what I'm going to do is go to previous, and I'm going to copy that edit I just made on the last paragraph. So these both match. Okay. I think that looks good. All right. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. I One of the reasons that we do this is that one of the mandates given for this class is that you walk away with a confident grasp on this kind of artsy fartsy sounding vocabulary. And I will tell you, there is a huge difference. If you are looking at somebody's work in one of your other classes and they ask you, what do you think about it? Would you rather, or do you think that they would rather hear you say, oh, it's pretty? Or do you think that they would really enjoy it if you said something like, I really love that you've demonstrated such a command of colors. You know, there's a definite visual balance in the colors. You can see that there's you use all sorts of different kind of complementary tones here, but the color really drives your eye through the pattern in the way that you use rhythm and shape to kind of engage the viewer in seeing this. Which of those do you think would be more pleasing to hear yourself, or for some, one of your friends to hear if they're asking about the artwork? I mean, it just, Jassiel?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say the second one definitely sounds better, just so that I can know what works with and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's more practical, but I also think it's more flattering because you've demonstrated to somebody that not only did you take the time to actually look at their work and you're validating it with the vocabulary that you use, but they can really appreciate the fact that you're able to articulate what you've seen. And it in every single case that I've done this, and I've graded like kindergarten art shows, not graded, I've judged kindergarten art shows. It is amazing to see these kids' eyes light up when you just use grown-up sounding words to describe what you see in their images, and they love it. And it doesn't even have to be a compliment. You can just describe what you see, but the fact that you took the time to look at it long enough to articulate what you see, and the fact that you use precise vocabulary, those two things become very flattering to the person who's seeing it, and they feel that the moments of their life that they spent creating that art has somehow been validated. And that is really very cool. But also, if you need to change something, it helps when somebody's looking at your work and they're precise and talking about it. And when you're looking at your own work and you think, oh, there's something I got to redo on this, but I don't know what. If you step outside of yourself and you look at it as if it's the first time you've ever seen it, and then you start going through this process, it will actually show you what you need to do to change what perhaps needs to be changed. But also, it proves to you that the time you spent on it is valid because you actually are going to appreciate it. Because who is your harshest critic? It's always you. You're always the harshest critic. And it's not because you're judging the artwork. It has very little to do with that. What you are judging is the disparity between what you see in that artwork and how much you know you've learned from doing it. So you're your own harshest critic because you're not giving a fair shake to the artwork itself. You're actually very aware of the things that you've learned and how you can improve for your next one. And that's, I think that one of the common threads for every student in every class I've ever taught is that you guys do not value your own work as much as you need to, or as much as you should. So that I hope that that will be, a good lesson to learn. Now, for this, I want to touch on the service learning really quickly too. We do have a few people in this class that are doing service learning. Well, the rest of the class is doing the artist research, the PowerPoint exhibit, our PowerPoint presentation. We talked about that. For the service learning, the analog for this is you're going to be actually carrying out your service project. Now, one of the issues with doing service instead of doing your own project by yourself is that you're at the mercy and the whims of the people that you are connected to for the service project. And of a necessity, that means you're not going to have the same kind of time frame necessarily. You're not going to be able to keep to the same kind of time frame as everybody else. So it is due October 26th for both of these projects, but particularly if you're service learning, do the best you can to stick to that. If you can't, if it's got to take place in November, just let me know. All right. And for this, what you're going to be doing is writing just a summary of how your project went. And that's pretty much. And if you don't want to write it, you can record yourself talking about it, and that's fine too. So anyway, that's what this part for the service learning part of the project. You're going to be doing the actual project itself. And so for the rest of the class, you're probably not going to see people's service projects and what they did until the very end of the semester. But for the people that are actually doing the service learning, you are not going to be doing the PowerPoint. You're going to be actually doing the project itself. So I'm getting back to the modules. And anybody who's doing service learning, if you have questions, contact me directly. I want to go back up here to applying the tools of artistic critique. Notice this is not due until November, the week before Thanksgiving. What is really important, though, is when you guys get this done, if you turn it in before October 31st, you will get extra credit for it. And so keep that in mind. I'm really hoping that people get this done before October 31st so that we can share those so everybody else can see what people have done. And also, the sooner you get it done, if it's not working out or you need to improve some things, it gives you an opportunity to redo stuff. So I take that into consideration as well. All right, well, that is all the material that I need to go over for this week. Do either of you that are here tonight, do either of you have any questions, concerns, or observations, things that you think might need to be cleared up? Anything like that? And I think one thing I do want to know from Jessiel, do you feel like I picked on you at all when I was going over the structure and skin project? Because that is not the intent. I was just talking about it so everybody would know what to do when they're working on the project or improving their own. Jessiel, did you feel picked on?
No, of course not. It's better for me to hear what I can improve on, So thank you.
Okay. All right, good, excellent. Because I have had people that didn't quite understand the project that were irritated when we talked about it. But then I've had other people, like last semester, somebody was working on one of these things, and the first iteration, it just was not working. We talked about that, and she actually reached out and said, "Hey, can we do a Teams call and you can walk me through what I needed to work on. And so we went through the assignment parameters and looked at her sculpture, and she turned around, redid it, resubmitted it, and knocked it out of the park. It was really well done. Just because, sometimes we're all artists. Sometimes it's difficult to get the kind of feedback you really need to hear in order to move forward when we're on an online class. So if you guys need to do FaceTime, Teams call, whatever, that does not hurt my feelings at all, and I'm happy to do that to talk through some of these things. So, Kim or Jassiel, do either of you have any other questions about any of this material we covered today?
I don't.
Okay. All right, good.
And yeah, no, I think I'm good. Thank you so much.
All right, great. And both of you guys are doing artist research, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be with me tonight. We are going to be meeting again on Wednesday, and Kim double checked. Thursday and Friday is when fall break is happening officially. So we will meet again Wednesday night, and that is when we will look at what everybody's turning in or resubmitting and talk about everybody's stuff that they turned in. And then we're going to touch on the next project we're working on, because we're going to do biomorphic carving, and we're going to be doing a couple more things towards the end of the semester. So we do have several more projects to go. Not a lot of projects, but we do have a few more projects to work on. So if you do have any questions or concerns about any of the material we covered in tonight's class discussion, please email me and let me know, and I will address those next week after I talk to you directly via email and address your concerns right away. So, but I hope you guys have a wonderful week and weekend, and stay safe, stay healthy. Don't use anybody else's toothbrush, and watch. If you're at a family gathering and a little kid hands you a cup for you to drink out of, be really careful and make sure they don't have a runny nose. Just, word of caution from somebody who's been there, done that. Watch out. But I hope you guys have a great week and weekend, and I will look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
You too. Thanks for the advice.
Thank you so much.
Sure. We'll talk to you later.